Welcome back to another episode of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast, powered by ISOFIT and Firefly Recovery. ISOFIT is my go-to for all things isometric strength training. For more on ISOFIT, be sure to check out isofit.com. Episodes like this are made possible by Firefly, the official recovery provider of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast. For more on Firefly, be sure to check out recoveryfirefly.com. This episode is powered by Dr. Ray Gorman, founder of Engage Movement. Learn how to boost your income without relying on sessions. Get a free training on the blended practice model by following at Ray Gorman DPT on Instagram. Mackenzie, Lena, Bree, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to work with the three of you today. For people who aren't familiar with you, your background in soccer, and now obviously your roles from a coaching side, would you mind fill them in a bit about who you are and all the amazing things that you've been doing?
I'm Bree. I graduated from Holy Family. I played there for 5 years. I ended up doing a fifth year. Since then, I've been coaching at Huntington Valley. I coach 2013 boys and 2012 boys. They're great. They're a lot of fun. I also am the assistant coach at Holy Family University for the women's team. I do a lot of their goalkeeping training over there. It's a lot of fun.
All right, my name's Lena Staropoli. I also played at Holy Family. I was a center back. I had 3 years where I got to participate fully. My fourth year, I actually missed because of an ACL tear, but then segued right back into coaching as soon as I could get back up on my feet. So I've been coaching at Huntington Valley also for the past 5 years. Started on the boys' side with Bree and then transitioned over to the girls' side. Right now, I'm 2010 and 2011 girls. I've done a number of teams on the girls' side that I've graduated out as well. And at Huntington Valley, I also handled the college recruiting program. So for all high school age teams, I help them get recruited to college and kind of see that through from 8th grade to senior year.
I'm Mackenzie. I also played at Holy Family for 4 years. Didn't do a fifth year and didn't tear my ACL my last year, so that's different. But I did go back to Maryland for PT school, so I just started coaching with Lena, both girls teams this past summer. So it's been officially a year coaching, and then excited to do the second year this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And obviously you all have that common trait of having played soccer at a very high level for a number of years that way, and then being able to turn around and kind of give back to the next generation of the sport through coaching and kind of paying it forward that way. And this has come up a lot on podcasts recently. And big shout out to my guy Tex, who kind of put me onto this kind of philosophy of, hey, maybe it's not the sport alone that's teaching kids valuable lessons for life. Maybe it's the captains and the coaches and the people, the human element of it that's actually having the big impact that we all look at coming from the sport. Maybe it's more the people than just the sport itself. And obviously, I think we can all speak from personal experience because fun fact about me, I played soccer back in the day. I wasn't nearly as good as you all. Mackenzie could probably meg me with her eyes closed right now. But regardless, we all know what it's like to have a great coach, an influential coach, someone who you look up to, who brings out the best in you. And I'm sure we all know what it's like to have a coach that is anything but that, unfortunately. And those experiences can really make or break the relation that the next generation has with the sport that they're engaging with that way. I'm interested to hear from the three of you. Have you had any kind of experiences with coaches? Obviously, we don't have to name drop, that have been really, really beneficial and just have really helped you in your journey in relation to the sport of soccer, and any that have just really deterred you from the sport or kind of turned you off from it, for lack of a better way to put it? And if so, what were those experiences like? How did you kind of collectively respond to those and react to those?
I mean, you always have like good coaches and not so good coaches growing up. I mean, you can always differentiate when you've played soccer for so long, like which ones you like, which ones you didn't like. And they really kind of shaped the way that I decided I wanted to coach. I just, you know what I mean? I saw what I didn't like and what I learned from, and I kind of transitioned that into the way that I coach now.
Growing up, I definitely, in the younger years, had some coaches that, like, in this world of like super competitive youth sports, practice 5 days a week, all year round, and coaches that put on this pressure and anxiety to perform, maybe more than they should or in the wrong ways. Definitely had some experiences with that, which kind of led me into this mindset of like soccer stopped being something fun and started being more like a job. Like soccer was a job. And that was something that I started to experience at probably like an abnormally young age. But then as time went on, I had other coaches that, you know, made it back into like the sport, the game, the relationships with their teammates, and still competitive, obviously, as you know, we get into Division II and college soccer, but made it a more enjoyable experience and kind of let me get the love back for the game. But coming straight from that my whole life, I really did not fall back in love with soccer again until I tore my ACL in college. And then that absence from the sport and not having it in my life, coming back to coaching and seeing it from a totally different perspective. And it's not a job and it's fun. It's something to work at, something to be good at. But, you know, having a whole different perspective on it, just totally different coming back as not a kid and as an adult. And that's my priority for the kids I coach, to make them not feel like this is just a task, a job, something you have to perform at. It's still a sport with lots of other benefits and you have to work hard, but it's still a game at the end of the day.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that injury. And then also, when I did injure myself, I was going into my freshman year of high school. And since I couldn't play contact, but I could run, I was doing track. And I loved our track coach, great guy, but he made me realize like how much I loved soccer because running and running and running and doing the same thing over and over and over again, I was like, this is horrible. So I think too, just like comparing, like when you lose something and you do a different sport or like you go back to the sport, that like environment of like, wow, like I really do enjoy going to soccer practice versus before, like, do I really have to go to soccer practice? So definitely that same type of coaching, yes. And then also just the experience of like missing it and then going back and like what Lena said.
Yeah, that absence factor playing into things. And it sounds like the combination of missing the sport that you had as kind of that hallmark staple in life for so many years, combined with different coaching experiences, helped to kind of shape your own coaching philosophies now that you use with the next generation of athletes that you get to work with day in and day out that way. What does your own kind of coaching philosophies look like now? For good, better, or worse that way? What's your kind of like overall framework for coaching soccer athletes that way? And how do you kind of go about like planning and preparing for your practices, game days, and so on that way?
I know one thing, like going back to like not being able to play and kind of pushing myself with track, we definitely always put some type of fitness in the beginning, whether it's just hill sprints or carrying each other up the hill or strengthening and like, you know, just trying to find a fun way to do it, but then also making sure they know, especially at the girls' age that we're coaching now, like you have to do things on your own. Like you are responsible for how you perform on the field. And if you don't like your playing time, maybe it's because you're not fast enough or you're not in shape enough. So kind of putting that out there, but in like it's okay to go out and want like this summer is your summer to like go and work on yourself and kind of put it on them, especially at like this age that, you know, it's okay to know that you need to improve on things, but what are you going to do? Like you can't just fix it at our 2 hour practice or hour and a half practice. So
Yeah. Accountability, I think, is the big thing that we like to harp on. Trying to just be as black and white as possible, especially when dealing with teenage girls, like the least black and white subgroup of people you could deal with. We definitely do our best to always say, you know, here's the things that you need to do to be successful. If you do them, you have a high likelihood of being successful on the field, off the field, whatever it might be. That being said, it's unrealistic to say that you can perform to perfection 100% of the time. You're going to have off days. If you're having an off day, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you what you're doing wrong. And just being as straightforward as possible, I think, is pretty much the deal that we go with.
And on the other side of it, like when I coach, I have younger boys. Accountability is huge, but I like to focus on everything's a team. We win together, we lose together, we do our fitness together, we do our punishments together. Everything we do is together. We hold each other accountable by doing things together. If someone's not doing what they're supposed to be doing at practice, everybody's doing burpees. That leads to telling them, hey, maybe stop talking when Coach Bree's talking. And it leads to accountability when you put the pressure on everybody, and everybody has to focus on doing the right thing. They start to hold each other accountable, especially at that young age.
Absolutely. So it sounds like the emphasis on working together as a team and doing everything together, the highs, the lows, the wins, the losses, just being united and relentless in your pursuit of whatever comes your way as a team, and developing those aspects lead to accountability by the sounds. And accountability sounds like a very hallmark pillar of all of y'all's coaching philosophies that way, just holding people to a certain standard and ensuring that they meet the requirements that they're expected of, making sure those expectations are clearly articulated to them so that they know what they need to do right now, but even beyond. And it's so interesting to me to hear those kind of being your coaching cornerstones, if you will, because just earlier today, I was having a conversation, another podcast recording actually, with a strength coach where we were talking about kind of this next generation of athletes and how it's very different than when we were in college or when we were trying to, play sports. Neither of us were very good at the time, don't get me wrong. But it was like, back then, some of these things like pay for play and this sense of like, well, I'm not going to play for this university unless they pay me X amount of money. Some of these different challenges were not part of the picture that way. And I think now more than ever, it's essential for us to drive home some of these character messages in the next generation of athletes, because if you don't develop them from a young age, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to develop them kind of later on in life, if you will. So I'm a huge fan of what it sounds like your coaching philosophies are that way. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of how you developed those kind of philosophies over time that way and how they've kind of evolved and some of the challenges that you might have faced different times when working with athletes, because it certainly sounds like working with the teenage and youth groups sometimes can be a little uniquely challenging.
I think what you just said about the generational difference in young athletes is super important. We're obviously not that far. I mean, I want to say we're not that far out. We're like 10 to 12 years out, but
like 10 years.
We're like 10 to 12 years, out from some of these high school girls that we coach. But the reality is, like, they're growing up and have always grown up in this culture of instant gratification where we're almost preaching like to a dying generation of, work hard for a long time and you'll reap the rewards eventually. This is something that requires, years and hours and all this time and effort to perfect the craft and get better at it. And the reality is, like, that's like the only thing, or very well could be the only thing in their life that is even remotely close to that at this point. And then with that, like, there's like a loss of a competitive edge a lot of times. When I think back to how it was maybe even when we were in high school and college versus now. And I think the two are hand in hand with each other, and trying to just like reignite that drive in the younger athletes is something that is difficult, especially when you get them at 16 or 17. I think it's salvageable when they're, 9, 10, 11. You can still kind of get it before society, before society gets a hold of them. And you can still kind of ignite those things in them. But that's for sure like the biggest hurdle that I see, and something that we actively try to work on. And it's not just soccer, right? Like, and helping them to understand that same competitive edge and drive can apply to literally anything else in their life. With the older girls, it's like, this is stuff that you can take into college, whether you play soccer or not, and take into the workforce after that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's definitely the biggest challenge is trying to provide them that motivation when you don't get the rewards right away. Like, they're practicing 4 or 5 days a week, playing 2 games every weekend, and they don't see anything until the end, and they want the rewards now. Like, they win a game, they want rewards now. They want games at practice, stuff like that, when we have more things to focus on. Like, we won this weekend, that's great, and we're gonna, not work on things that we worked on the previous week because we improved, but we have other things now that we have to do. We have to keep the ball rolling. We have to keep going and not just stopping every time we want a game. keeping them looking forward all the time, looking to the next one.
I said I definitely agree with the competitiveness. I don't know. I think us three especially, like we're just competitive with everything. Like we would do like pranks as roommates, and I feel like you didn't have the best prank, like you'd be mad. So when I got to coaching and kind of picked up on a little bit of like in scrimmages and practice, like I'd be mad if my team lost, like in college and high school, if any small, like that, like made me mad. And I like to see when girls get mad if like we do a shooting drill and some girls are like mad that they're losing. Like I love to see that. And then some days, like I get people have off days, but like I'll notice that they just don't care and they're just kind of walking around. And that's something that like Lena especially harps on, and I've definitely picked up on. Like you have to want to be here, and especially at the level that they're playing in this club they're paying for, like they're paying a lot of money to play. And I think especially as they get older, they realize that, but like they need to want to be there. And soon getting into high school and playing, and if some of these girls want to play in college, like you're going to have to want it and work for it to get it. And I think that generational difference, especially, it hasn't hit home for some people. So that's definitely something that we try to portray in an easier way than that. But
Yeah, absolutely. Building off of that, it makes me think of a lot of the conversations I've had lately with Rob Nelson from Penn State. That way is he's more of an ecological dynamics psychology kind of individual that way in a lot of his work. And one of the things we've talked about at length is it seems like this next generation of athletes is missing this ability to solve problems independently on their own. And a lot of times that's related to sport. Ultimately, everything an athlete does is solving a problem, whether that's dribbling past a defender or trying to stop the person with the ball in front of them, trying to block a shot. There's always some kind of problem that's proposed by the sport and a unique creative solution that is demanded of them. And essentially what we found is that learning these tasks and learning how to solve these problems is not linear in nature. It's not just a marathon of ups. Instead, it's a constant ongoing interaction that involves highs, lows, successes, failures, times when, as you mentioned, your athletes are really upset and unhappy about things, and other times when, hey, they're really happy about things. And I think ultimately it just comes back to this concept of the athletes themselves are highly dynamic. They're constantly changing. They're very much still learning and still evolving. And I think for some reason, we start to treat kind of this next generation of athletes, especially when they get to the high levels like you all are at from a travel standpoint at such a young age, we start to treat them the same way that we treat professional athletes, because that's almost the standard that we're holding them to with the amount of time they're investing into their sport. However, they're still young. They're still 10, 12, 14, 15 years old. And we kind of forget that they've got development left to go. And we forget what it's like sometimes, or at least I think we forget what it's like sometimes to literally be in their shoes and being tasked with some of these unique problems that they need to solve and the level of skill that they have to solve them against, when in reality, they're still a teenager, or they're still just a kid, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah, we've definitely seen some crazy stuff as far as that goes with, I think Huntington Valley, the club that we coach at, does a really good job of keeping the balance there, and the expectations are high, but they're not too high. That being said, we definitely participate and play against some clubs where it becomes unrealistic, right? The time commitment, the travel commitment, there's no way that that's not impeding the child's overall experience, the school year's experience. Your school, like if you go up to 15 years old and you can never attend your buddy's birthday party once on a weekend because you have soccer 3 states away, those are the kind of things that it's still important. It's still important to have the experience of a kid. Otherwise, that's what, going back to what we said in the beginning, that's what turns the sport into a job. And then that's what ultimately, that's what burns them out. How can you expect a kid that's been dealing with that for 18 years to want to continue that for another 4 in college at an even higher level?
That, and especially at Huntington Valley, at least all of my players, they all at least play another sport.
Mm-hmm.
They all play baseball. They all play basketball, and they love it. They love playing those other sports. And some people disagree, but I think those are necessary in kids' development. And I think it makes them better in soccer and in their other sports. There's so many times at practices where I'm like talking to them, I'm like, when you guys are in basketball and we're low and we're shuffling, that's what we need to be doing when we're defending. And I use other sports as analogies in mine, and they should be able to play other sports and get out of soccer and do other things and experience the world a little bit. Even though they're young, like they deserve to experience the world just as much as everybody else. And like Lena said, when you're traveling 3 states away every weekend, it gets pretty exhausting and you get sick of it and you miss your friends at home and all that other stuff. You get to miss out on that stuff.
I think that's absolutely amazing. And I think the other thing that it makes me think of as y'all were talking is this concept of the difference between being an athlete on a team, being a member of the team in the sense that you're playing on the field, you're competing, and so on that way, to competing as a coach, and the transition that it must take to go from athlete to coach. And this is one that I know a lot of athletes express interest in to me, in the sense that they love the sport that they've gotten to play and they want to continue to be involved in some standpoint, but they've never coached before, or they don't really know what it's like to be involved in the sport, but not necessarily the one playing the sport that way. I'd love to hear a bit about how you all transitioned from being an athlete and being on the field to now being on the coaching side of things, and being at the games, right on the sideline, still kind of leading the charge, but leading it in maybe a different sense than you once did.
I mean, I think for me at least, it was definitely a little challenging in the beginning, especially coming from being on the field to, like you said, not being on the field. It was hard having to be there from the sideline and like thinking in my head, like how I would do things differently. And if I was on the field, and then I had to learn how to coach what I was feeling and express that to my players and get them to do the things that I was thinking from the sideline. I think that was my biggest challenge, was understanding, okay, I can't be the one to do it now.
Yeah, it's definitely a quick reality and humility check. Sometimes we deal with some kids, and like you can only the ultimate goal, right, is that like I hope to make this kid better than I ever was, and to teach them to make good decisions on the field and execute well. And that definitely comes with, like, just because I would play this way and what I would decide in this situation as a player is the realization that like that does not actually mean it's the best thing to do.
That too, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
And so like sometimes like the knee-jerk reaction to some things, I have to take a second to process and realize like that's what I would do as a player, and I'm a bonehead player. I'm like make the better choice in the coaching situation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of them. It's been nice because I'm assistant coach under Lena, so I kind of get to see how like she like bites her lip and when she says something. And for the most part, we always agree on like anything that either of us say. But it's also cool to like see if she thinks something differently than I do, or if we say something like, "What are we doing next?" It's like nice to be able to bounce ideas off each other because, like they said, like the first thing that's coming to our heads is like what we would be doing on the field, or what we would be doing on the goal, or how we would play, or like what we think would happen next. But like switching it to the other way is, I mean, we all still play, so that's also hard because we play in a women's league, and like it definitely is hard to switch. I'm definitely not there yet. I don't know how they could head coach, but I'll be there one day maybe.
And y'all play on the same women's league team?
Yeah.
So what's the dynamic like for you all, as, you know, obviously playing together for several years in college that way, now still playing together, but maybe different level of competition than maybe he was? Yeah.
It's a lot funner. We have a lot more laughs for sure. A lot more mistakes happen, but that's all right.
But that's what we talked about like earlier, that like the fact that we are this far out of college and we still willingly give up multiple days a week. We
to go play soccer.
Yeah, we obviously like that. We give up Sunday mornings and have been giving up Sunday mornings since we were 22 years old. So it's obviously because we love the sport. Otherwise, never. If you asked me this question 7 years ago, like my sophomore year of college, if I would be doing this now, uh,
I
hard no.
probably would have said no.
Absolutely not. Are you out of your mind? No. Yeah.
No, for sure. And it sounds like, at least to me that way, that's one of the other cornerstones to your coaching philosophies is ensuring that the athletes that you work with have that kind of love or develop that kind of love for the sport long term so that when they are in their mid to late 20s and they don't have to get up early and don't have to give up their Sunday mornings when maybe they could have just stayed out a little bit later that last Saturday night and had a good little time there drinking espresso martinis. I know no one likes those, but it's like that concept of just giving up time that you don't have to give up for something because of how much you enjoy it and because how much you love it. And those are the kind of things that you don't just get by going through the motions playing a sport. Those are the things that you only get when you're surrounded by the right coaches, the right athletes, and the overall positive team environment and atmosphere that all of us are trying to develop for the athletes that way. But as we've mentioned, it's so difficult to do sometimes. And you even mentioned earlier about the focus of how you develop that team mindset and how that you develop the we kind of thinking that way instead of just the self-centered approach that a lot of people tend to have. And I'm probably guilty of it myself sometimes, about how we think about ourselves before others sometimes. I'm interested to hear more about that kind of process for you all that way, because obviously it seems like you all kind of live that and embody that concept of team over myself, putting others first, and so on that way. Outside of, just keeping everyone accountable in practice that way, has there been anything that you've done or anything you've liked from a practice dynamics and just team building and team development side of things that you feel really pays dividends with that kind of like setting the cultural standard and helping athletes to see that sport is more than just the sport at hand?
I think something that comes from like college too that we definitely do with like coaching is like team bonding is so important. Like at college that there'd be times where we're like, I can't believe our coach is like making us eat lunch together. I can't believe our coach is making us cycle during like preseason together. But it is those days that like we go back, like I was more sore from that day of cycling that was supposed to be like a fun morning than I was that whole week of preseason. Like those are things you don't forget. And I think it's really cool, especially with our two teams, like we do team dinners and we go to the girls' houses and they have fun together and they do Dance Dance Revolution. It's like those things matter. And I think it's important. They have friends from school and different things, but they are friends from soccer too. And it's okay to have fun and it's not always serious. So that's something I feel like is really important.
I know my younger team, they make it a point, like at least me and the parents, we make it a point to do one overnight tournament at least a season, one in the fall, one in the spring. It's something that we like work into our schedule every year. We plan it ahead of time and we do the overnight. They stay Friday and Saturday and the boys get the hotel, they swim in the pool and they get to spend the whole weekend together. It's one of their favorite weekends of the year. So they don't even care about the soccer part. They couldn't care less about our games. They're just worried about what we're doing at the hotel that night and where we're all going to go eat lunch in between and where we're going to go have fun that night. That's all they care about. And that's something that we make sure that we do every year, twice a year, just to get them out and get them together.
Yeah, the team meals is definitely, I think, the best one. Like Mackenzie said, we get a good mix of girls that don't go to school together. So it's nice for them to kind of have those relationships and friendships that are outside of their school friends, and benefits us. It kind of keeps all the middle school and high school girl drama away. And it just lets it be like these are my soccer friends, and it translates well into the practice dynamic and the field dynamic.
They get excited to come to practice after. They get excited to see each other. That's all we ever want is for them to be happy to come to practice and to see each other and enjoy their time together.
Do you all feel like there's any difference in how you approach the coaching for maybe the boy athletes versus the girls that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't do team dinners. Like they get excited to go out to eat together, like when we're stuck at the soccer field, but like they don't want to be with me on the weekend. Like when we're away, like they want to go play ding dong ditch and run around the hotel and do their thing. We kind of let them go in that aspect and let them have their fun. At soccer, we just play, like we end every practice at least with like one shooting game. It really is a shooting drill, but when you tell them it's a game and you put them on teams, they have a blast. And then you let them pick teams and run around and have fun. The team dinners for them, not so much. They just kind of like to run around.
Yeah. With girls, it's definitely like a little bit psychological. If a girl feels like she's being excluded socially from the team, she's not going to perform well. She doesn't like being there. So like that inclusivity with the team and with the coaches, right? So same girls are the same way with coaches. If they think their coach hates them, they're not they're not going to play well. That's going to run through their head the whole game. Or if they think so and so is mad at them that's playing next to them, uh, especially with teenage girls, like it's a thing that I'm always have been aware of because I was in that situation. Um, and that's the point of why we're so black and white. Like I need you to take the feelings out of this and just focus on what you're doing and don't get distracted by sometimes the made up, sometimes legitimately valid things that are happening socially among the team. But yeah, it's definitely a stark difference from the boys. Definitely not my favorite part about coaching girls, but it's the reality. It's the reality of coaching them. It gets so much worse when high school season starts. It's bad, but I strive to make the teams that I coach an outlet for them to not feel that social pressure that they might feel at high school soccer or at school or for all honesty, like any other time that their phone is on them, which is 24/7. So this 2 hour practice or 2 hour game, this is a 2 hours where you're not going to worry about any of that. And if I ever noticed, I haven't because every girl I coach knows I feel strongly about this. But if I did ever notice at a practice, it would be squashed pretty quick.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Lena just said. I think it's good. She always says it at the beginning of a game or at the beginning of practice. Like this is like your mind free time. Like this is when you just think about soccer, you play soccer, you have fun, and like literally anything else that's going on right now doesn't matter. And it's so important because there'd be so many times, especially in college, where like things are going on at home with family that like you're not around or as a boyfriend or girlfriend issue. And like those things definitely impact how you play. So I think that's so important, especially for the teenage girls age, like to emphasize that. Like, let's just play. Like, you don't have your phone on you, your boyfriend's not next to you, your parents aren't here. Like, it's important. So
And I definitely try to like model that as well. And I know Ken's and Lena do. Like, we're not on our phones at practice. We're the same way. Like, as soon as we get to practices, as soon as we get to games, it's the same for us. Like, the rest of it doesn't matter. Like, we're here, we're playing soccer. I'm focused on the team, I'm focused on what's happening, and my phone's in my bag. I don't look at it. I know they're the same way. And it's just an outlet from the rest of the world for a couple hours of the day. It's really something I know that we all try to emphasize for them too.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of creates the sport becoming almost like an escape for sometimes the harsh realities of the world that we live in today, in today's day and age that way. And obviously, as you all were talking, I was thinking, and I think Lena, you even brought it up. It's like you all have also experienced great successes, but also immense struggles in relation to sport or things off the field that may somehow find their way into impacting your sport that way, one way or another that way. It's crazy to think that, as you mentioned, just 10-ish years ago, you all were kind of in their shoes, believe it or not. So how did your own struggles and successes when you were playing soccer yourself that way, whether that be on the field or off the field, impact and influence the way that you support the athletes that are going through some of those trying times and adversity that way in today's day and age with your coaching roles?
I mean, I always just try to like stay positive with them. Constructive criticism, everybody hears it all the time, but a lot of the times it seems like it's just criticism. And most of the time, that's all they hear. you can say one good thing and one bad thing, and they're only going to hear the bad thing. So like most of the time I've been pretty good with it. Obviously sometimes I slip, but it's always one good thing, one bad thing, one good thing. When I'm trying to say something to one of my athletes, one of my players, I always end on a good thing, especially at the end of practice. I always highlight what everybody did great that day and what we did great that week. So always sending them off on a good note.
Yeah, that's a good one. Just making sure that they're feeling like positively reinforced is a big one. Um, Another thing, like not even necessarily related to on the field directly, but I really like to stress with the athletes and the parents of the athletes that I coach that like I'm here as a person that's been in your shoes fairly recently to offer you advice, on or off the field. College, like with the college recruiting program, I do a lot of one-on-one counseling with the athletes and their families, trying to help them make a decision that's going to impact their life. And I'm very brutally honest with them. Um, is this really the best decision for you? What is it that you need to succeed in college? Like it's all just a matter of being honest, but also being there as kind of a sounding board for the athlete when you can offer a perspective that they likely can't get the same thing from their parents who probably didn't play at this level ever. They definitely didn't experience it this way if they did. Um, like I might be flattering myself, but kind of like an older sister type of situation. I want to be. I've been there. I've done that. I can offer you some wise words, but also it wasn't so long ago that I'm completely out of touch. One of my favorite things is the girls that I've coached recently, then graduated and are playing college soccer now. I stay in pretty constant contact with, hearing all about their college experience, and in the early days it can be rough. I think my phone was off the hook during a preseason, but nothing actually like makes me happier than being able to be that person for them.
Yeah, I think back to not that I was exactly their age, but I was similar age when I tore my ACL, and we have some girls on our team that unfortunately are going through like not just ACL but other long-term surgeries. And I just try to like not stress and be like, I'm a PT and try to get on them, like do your own thing, obviously, but I'm here to just talk to you about like this sucks and I know it sucks and it's not like, and the girls come to the games. They don't come to every practice, but they come to the games, and I know how much 8-12 months of sitting and watching is not fun. So I just try to like stress that like I'm here, text me like if you need to talk about anything. I think now more so I get like a lot more texts from parents than I do the girls, just like she hurt this and she didn't want to tell you and like what can she do, and I think that's good on the parents aspect, but it's good also when they can feel comfortable enough to text and be like, what can I do in this circumstance, which was really cool that we did like an injury prevention day where I kind of just went through like super easy body weight and like banded exercises. Dan, I know I talked to you before I did that. But just like a quick 45 minutes of like one page just for them to take home. Like they're going into high school and they're going to need strength training, and it was a good way to just kind of introduce that. And a lot of the girls were like very into it. Like we had parents that were like, they love that, like where can we get a band? And it's good to introduce that. Like this Friday I'm meeting with a track team, and before their like cross country and track practice, and like just talking to them about stuff. And it's good to see that peak of interest of like nutrition and rest is just as important as you going and getting your miles in, or you working out. So I think that's cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to your point, all of those other factors and variables that you mentioned, whether that be the sleep, the nutrition, and so on, that way do impact the overall athlete that way. And, you brought it up there, Mackenzie, and obviously, Lena, you brought it up earlier that you both underwent ACL injuries that way, and just how debilitating and dark that can be. And just that entire process and that entire time, 9 to 12 month window that way, demands a lot out of you psychologically, obviously, but also just from a work ethic standpoint in order to rebuild what you lost. Like you're literally having to relearn how to walk, relearn how to use the muscles of your leg that you've never had to think about learning how to use before. It just sort of naturally happened on its own. And it makes me think of this famous quote that keeps getting brought up by my friend AK, who basically says, you know, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, is the biggest lie ever. Because there's been so many instances where athletes are busting their butt, and we're the team that's putting in more time and more effort and more energy. Or, you know, I'm the athlete that was out for 9 to 12 months, and I still put in all this time throughout that time. I worked like a dog to try and get back, but even all of that work that I put in wasn't enough, because sometimes there's athletes that are a little bit more gifted at the sport than I am, that, you know, yeah, maybe they don't have to work as hard for some of these different skills, and they just come quicker to them and come more natural to them. However, that doesn't make the concept of avoiding hard work irrelevant. I think, if anything, it should be motivation for us, or those that are kind of like me and just not naturally good at pretty much anything motor related, a little bit of a motor moron, for lack of a better way to put it. It should just incentivize us to put a little bit more time in and work even harder to get to that level. You know, unfortunately, we weren't all given the same level of talent. And unfortunately, some of those recoveries following injuries go a lot easier than others. You know, I can have one kid back in 7 months and another back in 12 months. And some of those kids that were there for 12 months worked way harder than the kids that were only there for 7 months. I can't quite tell you what that differentiating factor is and why some occurred just so much faster than others. But I think that concept of knowing that, you know, it's not going to be all fair and equitable in this skill development side of sport, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't shy away from the hard work and the dirty work that it takes to get there, is also a super essential takeaway, at least for me, just kind of drawing that conclusion from y'all's experiences thus far that way.
A big thing that we talk about with our teams is, you know, control the controllables. You can't control if your opponent is twice your size, twice your speed, or twice as good at soccer in that moment. You can control the decision making on the pitch, and you can control your preparation for the game. And you can control your drive and your heart in the moment and long term leading up to it. And those are the things that, like, we're not getting the, although we're very competitive and very good, we're not getting the cream of the crop kids here, but we are competing against them. So the key to success there is to control those controllable things before and during the game.
I love that. I'm going to take that. Thanks. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's my next pep talk to the Sting boys. No, but she's right. Like, we're not getting the best players in the tri-state area at Huntington Valley, but we are competing against them. She's completely right. And having the drive to compete against the best of the best is all we're looking for. And to do your best to compete against them is all we're looking for out of our players, at least.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that point. And again, it's just knowing that you can do it. And I mean, there's so many instances of, you know, the athlete who maybe is not as skilled as someone else, absolutely shutting them down and like absolutely wrecking them in a game that way. I mean, I just think back to, you know, this past year. I know y'all are in Philly, so Eagles Super Bowl win that way, right? Like, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is touted as this great generational talent quarterback, and yet your Eagles defense absolutely shut him down and made him look kind of like Cam Newton did against the Broncos years ago, right? It's the concept of knowing that, you know, you might be going up against someone that has more talent and more skill, but your willingness to show up and put in the work and the time and effort and energy can still get you to a level where, as you mentioned, you can compete with them, you can hang with them, and you can play ball with them all day long. And I think that that's a kind of concept that is not taught enough, because everyone is just so much just they're just hit with this phrase that, well, you know, if talent is working, you can't hang with them. But if talent doesn't work, oh, then you can beat them. I think the quote tends to be a little misleading, in my opinion, that way. And as I was talking about that too, that was something that I didn't really come to the conclusion of until recently that way. And it's something that I almost had to like challenge and change my own belief system to get to where I'm at, and kind of my own thoughts around some of these different concepts that I didn't have those thoughts 5 years ago. I'm interested, was there any kind of habits or beliefs that you had when you were playing soccer that changed, or maybe you had to unlearn or relearn, so to speak, when your role shifted from primary role as a player to primary role as a coach?
I think kind of what you just mentioned. As a player, I was always sort of the type to be like, I can just out hustle them. I can out hustle them, and that'll get me far enough. Um, as coach, you come to realize that like that's not a realistic way to coach kids. You're not gonna be able to out hustle them every time. So it comes more to like a tactical kind of aspect where we have to adjust our tactics because we know we're gonna get out tactic and out hustled. So we have to take a more tactical approach to how we do things.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that, especially with the boys, like a lot of them think that they can just out hustle everybody. And I love it. I'm never going to shut that down, but I have to try to turn that hustle into technical work at practices and tactical work in the classroom, and making that hustle look a little bit different for them, for it to show on the field in a different way. Because in their minds, they're just going to run, 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 run. And sometimes the other person's going to run a lot faster, like Lena said. And when you take that hustle and you show them just how to defend that someone faster, then that hustle changes on the field. It becomes more physical and strength than it is just running.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what they said, the physical aspect of it, of like you're not the same player as everyone that you're coaching. And also like I guess like I try to think of some of the girls that like don't get a lot of playing time, and like I didn't get a lot of playing time in college, and like how they react to it and how I would have react to it, and to try to like get through their heads that like you might not play, and like yeah, it sucks, but figure out how you can help the team. And that is just something that's not in like a younger population's head, especially when their parents are like, why aren't my kids playing? Like at this level, you shouldn't expect playing time, especially when we're going far in the season. And if your daughter is going to sit there and mope and not ever ask what she can do to play, like she's probably never going to play. And if she's going to figure out how to like get extra prep in, or if she asks how she can improve on something, stuff like that, that's kind of hard to like step back and realize that they need to do that on their own. It's not something that we should be telling them to do. Was definitely something that you pick up on going from player to coach. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like that's probably a conversation that we could probably continue for the rest of the night that way, because there is a lot different when you're playing the sport versus coaching the sport. And obviously, being a coach and a player, albeit a slightly different level of competition player, is also like really fascinating to me as well. And I think that there's a lot more to unpack about this that way. And we could talk about it all night long, like I mentioned that way. I'm interested. Is there anything that we missed as we were chatting so far that you really wanted to bring up, or any kind of thoughts or remarks that you all had around this concept of, athlete to coach?
No,
It definitely changed my perspective of the game. I definitely learned, I think, a lot more in my first year of coaching than I did in my 22 years of playing. Especially as a goalie, coming in being a head coach for a full team, I'm not just coaching my one position that I know. I definitely completely learned the game on a different level. I understand it differently, and I think my IQ definitely jumped just in 1 year of coaching.
I think really just the only thing over years of successful career playing soccer, I can confidently say that the rewards with coaching are like tenfold. It is very rewarding to see this younger generation and a team that you lead succeed. I've felt more fulfilled in the past 3-4 years of coaching kids than what was also a very fulfilling and long soccer career myself, but it's definitely a rewarding.
I agree. I'm only 1 year into it, but I had a lot of fun this year. We also did really good, so that was a plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting take too, is like it's easy for things to, be good when things are going good. It's like, when the record's good, when the team's winning tournaments and games and stuff, it's easy for like all the highs to feel ridiculously high that way. And I'm certainly interested to hear how that continues to evolve for you as you kind of face some different coaching challenges and unique situations that kind of pop up that way, because I'm sure that there's not really anything that can fully prepare you for the stresses that coaching throws at you sometimes. I mean, I'm sure you've all got crazy stories of stuff that has happened, or like athletes have brought up, and just experiences when you're kind of traveling away for competition and stuff that happens. And it's just like, nothing could have ever prepared you for that. So I can't wait to hear more about how that continues to evolve for you all that way throughout your coaching career that way. For people who want to reach out to y'all with questions, or maybe find out more about y'all online that way, where can they find y'all at? Are y'all Instagram people, TikTok people? Definitely TikTok people. Definitely. I can see this trio crushing some TikTok dances right now.
I'll give my PT page.
TikTok, actually.
Mackenzie.pt.dpt. It's no longer SPT.
We love that.
No TikTok. I don't have a TikTok. Sorry.
Yeah, no TikTok for me either. Just first and last name on Instagram.
Yeah, mine's just Bri Pudlo on Instagram.
That's awesome. We'll link to all that in the description below too. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there and see everything that Lena, Bri, and Mackenzie are up to. This was awesome. Really appreciate y'all's time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, thank you for your time.